So yeah, I found it so interesting and a bit different to somatic stuff I've done before, in that I didn't find myself getting super into the emotions. It was more like I was seeing it from this big overview more.
The other
Just,
somatic.
No, this. Like it was
okay.
almost like it wasn't. So it almost enabled me to go deeper because I wasn't.
And without digging into emotions.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was interesting. Yeah, I really liked the fact that it just cut, like we bypassed all the emotional stuff. It felt like you could go much quicker. It felt like a whole thing. It like I was amazed that you took me like right like last year. So I was in Mexico this time last year, and I'd been recommended this EMDR guy to work with, and like he's supposed to be the best of the best, and blah blah blah. Mm-hmm. But I really found it like I worked with him for like maybe 6 months. It was really expensive as well, and I was just getting like more and more traumatized because it was like every week let's go back into this like old pain, let's bring it into the nervous system, let's feel it, but when we're going into the sort of childhood stuff, and most of my stuff is just like this sort of bloody loneliness you know, like then I was just like, why, like if I'm feeling lonely, how am I going to heal by going to these sessions to sit in all this more loneliness? I was just getting worse and worse and worse, and I was like, I don't want to do this. Like that was the other somatic guy I worked with, and I think that was actually when I stopped working with him. Was he started really wanting to get into like generational trauma and sort of pushing for that, and I was just like, oh, like. It just felt like too much. I was just like, I'm just trying to deal with me, like.
So this is something unique in my method, and it just happens by itself. It was not like this always before, because I've been doing it since 2012. And there was like a whole period, years of people coming and working through traumas and whatever, and there was a lot of purging, tears, like digging into stuff. You know, somebody calls me and like I need a session, I feel like contraction, like I don't want to do this, you know, it's heavy.
Yes.
So it's like, and then I started noticing that people actually have almost addiction to dig into like what is bad, I want to know what is cursed, what is evil, like show me. And they always wanted to talk, because talk therapy is very trendy.
Yes.
And when you know when you have something heavy on your chest, you're like sharing with a friend and you feel relief. So this is almost like an addiction, but then we are not actually moving things, we're just talking about it. I call this mental masturbation. So you basically in your mind, and we're analyzing and blah blah blah, but the body is cut from this process.
Yes.
And I'm like, no guys, like this is not talk therapy, you need to go inside and look like, and I don't have answers for you. So there was a moment when like, okay, I feel I want to slow down, I don't want to like continue now. And then I had a break, and then when I restarted, something just completely changed. I started attracting people, whether they are aware on different frequency, or also I went to different frequency, that we do not go into darkness anymore. I actually started learning through people about things, because they go to a place not just like, you know, focused on a selfish little me, like, oh, I'm hurt and that. They actually pass through this stuff, and they're like going into something global. So since that shifted, I see people, there are two types of people. I don't know still how it works, but some people, they hold on to the drama still, and they don't want to walk forward.
Yes.
And they're not aware.
Yeah.
And it's basically, we can say they have fear to go through fear. Like I'm so scared, I don't want to approach even my fear. But actually, this is where the power lies. I don't know how, but I have this ability to pass through the fear in a high frequency.
Yes.
So you're not dropping to the low frequency emotions. You go high, and you have this energy to look at it from the different angles.
Yeah.
You have abilities You have abilities, you have power, and you have light that is undiscovered and explored. So we know already what is fear, we know what is sadness, we know all the negative.
Yep.
But we don't know what is my power.
Yes.
What is the light and like the goodness, you know?
I think that's so true.
How did you feel after the sleeping? Like, how did you feel in your body?
I felt very relaxed, felt very present and quite flowing, and still sort of, it was still processing, and still like a few more things were sort of coming up for me. And then I did some like journaling around it, and there was a little bit where I was a little bit emotional, and also physical as well, like, and I slept really, really well that night. And there was a couple of things that I've never understood them that clearly before.
Okay.
It was seeing, there was a couple of, like, some of it I was like, oh, I know this, and then I was like, oh, but I never sort of saw around that corner before.
Okay.
The bit, like, when, like, with the like dagger, and feeling like it had come from my mum, but then feeling like it was like these layers upon layers of things behind my mum, and almost this thing of like, it was almost like vibrations that had like built up into this sort of hatred and this powerful emotion over like who knows how long. And actually it was like, it was something that was dealt by my mum, even though she didn't want to. It was like
unconscious.
She just had happened, even though she didn't. I could see that really clearly. It was like she didn't. It was the opposite of what she wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I've never really seen it that clearly before, you know. But I think it's very of it. But then the bit that really made sense was, I was like, well, I always feel like I need to, like, there's a sort of, I'm like, what is this sort of true wildness in me that needs to be in me, that it feels like it's healthy. And I think I always sort of think, oh, it must be in that sort of dark bit, you know, in all the addictive things and all the like chaos and stuff. But when we were doing the session towards the end, and I was like, oh no, because that's not what it means to be wild in nature.
Exactly.
That wildness doesn't come from the dark. That's human, that dark sort of chaos.
It's our perception of
that. And like really recently I've been feeling like, for a while now, I've done a lot of work. I know what my stuff is. I know what's happened to me, and
exactly.
Blah, blah,
we
blah.
know it.
I know it. But what I've been struggling with is to sort of, I've been feeling like this essence of me that I'm just not quite connected to. This like, and it's that balance of like gentle and wild and all of those things. And when I was seeing that in the session, when we were really looking at that nature, I was like, oh, it's really connecting to that.
Yeah.
Like, and I was like, it really, like, it was like a light bulb, you know.